Welcome to Great Falls High School. I'm Dr. Jamal Sanders, proud principal of Great Falls High School, and we're excited to welcome you here tonight to our community town hall meeting. At this time, I'll turn it over to our superintendent, Dr. Antoine Sutton.
Thank you, Dr. Sanders. Good evening, everyone. It's great to see you all out. Definitely appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules to come out and hear some information from us about our upcoming Vision 2026 bond referendum. We're excited about it. Hope you all are too. We want to make sure that during this time we share information with you and allow you all to have a chance to ask questions or make comments. But I will ask, when it's time for comments or feedback, just keep in mind that we're all here for the same thing, right? We all want what's best for our community and for our students. We may disagree on some things of it, but let's make sure that our goal is to respect everyone who's here, you all and ourselves. So we want to just hear from you all, and that's important to me. That's why we're doing this. If we didn't want to hear from you all, we wouldn't have these town halls. We want to hear from the community, be able to ask questions. We have our architects, construction management firm on standby, and other district staff members that may be able to answer your questions this evening. Before we move further along in our program, I would like to introduce those who are sitting behind me. We have board members here and our senior staff in the district office. So I will start on one end. Get my board members first. Those are my bosses. Can't leave them out. We have Ms. Brenda Ford, board member. Mr. James Fuller, board member. And board chair, Mr. Shannon, Doug Shannon. All right, we have our chief officer, Dr. Will Pick. This is the chief administrative services officer. Ms. Denise Khalid, chief academic officer. Javonda Dickerson, principal of Chester County Career Center. Mr. Adam Davis on the back, chief operations officer. Mr. Wendell Sumner, Chief Human Resources Officer. I didn't leave you out, did I get you? Or I skipped you. Ms. Mellingen, Chief Financial Officer for the district. She has the checkbook. We also have Ben Thompson, architect, and Peter Nelson. I'm going to call you Ben too. But Peter Nelson from McMillan Pazza Smith here. And so let's give them all a round of applause for being here this evening. So our objectives this evening is definitely to review the Vision 2026 plans and to gather feedback from the public on the plans and to answer any questions you might have. And again, we'll try our best to answer those questions. If something we don't know, we're not going to stand up here and make anything up. We'll just tell you we don't know, that's something we need to consider, and we'll get back to you with a response on that. We have information, Chris thought there were information on the table, right? Okay, there's information on the table. Out there, for those of you who have walked, I think you all have those, okay? You have those. All right. The need. There's several reasons that, where districts, they need to build schools or to rebuild or to renovate schools. And one of the key things, I'll mention some of those key factors, and I may not capture all of them, but some key things I want you all to be aware of. Our high schools have not been touched in over 50 years. 50 years. Think about how long that is. 50 years that we haven't touched our high schools, other than some minor renovations here and there over the years. Again, our facilities, we do not have modern facilities in this district. And our students deserve, our community deserves to have modern facilities that facilitate the learning. Learning how you all learn, or those of you that weren't schooled in the 70s or so, how people learned in the 70s, it's definitely not how students learn in 2022. And I think we all could agree on that the learning spaces from before, which were more classrooms with desk and military style roles, that is not how students learn today. Students learn in more collaborative type of spacing. You have more tables and chairs and those kinds of things, and furniture that allows for more collaborative learning with students. And so our goal is to have learning spaces that are conducive to learning in the 21st century. And also with these new facilities, in addition to schools, that will allow us the opportunity to have more programming, more classes that students want. And some of you I've met with have shared some other courses that you would be interested in our students being able to have. So that's something that with these new facilities, we'll be able to do that, because our current facilities, they lack the infrastructure. We have a lot of plumbing issues, electrical issues where we can't plug certain equipment and pieces of equipment into. So these facilities will help with those things, offering other courses for our students. As you all know, a lot of our classes, they do not have natural light. Natural light, research shows that is something that can impact students on their academic performance and their learning. And so a lot of our classes lack natural light in their facilities. And another key priority for me is to make sure we have safe and secure facilities. As you all know, we've had shootings and things across our country, and it's one thing we hope and pray that we don't have in Chester County. But again, as superintendent, I will stand and tell you that our campuses are not 100% secure. They're not. Our campuses are pretty open, where students have to go outside to get to the place. We have classrooms that are open to the outside of some campuses, and we want to have campuses where students are contained inside, and we can funnel kids in and out of certain 1 or 2 interests, or visitors that come to our campuses, where we can channel where they go and navigate our building. But right now, a lot of facilities they're not fully secure, where people can plug into a parking lot and they can walk into our schools. And also, we need these facilities that will also help with the growth. We all know our county is growing. The growth is coming from the north, and they're coming here, where we're positioned between Columbia and Charlotte is an ideal location. And as you know, people are buying real estate here, the land, and other industries are coming here, and they're even asking, industries that are coming here are asking, what is Chester County going to do with their schools? Because they want to have their industry here, but they want the employees to come, be able to offer facilities where their employees can come and have their children in our schools also. We also have a lot of developments that are coming as well. Great Falls, as you all know, you have the Whitewater Rafting Center coming. I understand there's other things in the works too for this area with some of the old mills and things here. And of course, with the Richburg area, there are developments there. And even in Chester itself, there are developments that will be popping up over the next 10 or so years in our county. So we see the growth right down the road. You go up 77 to Rock Hill and Fort Mill, in Clover, Lake Wiley, you see the growth. We read about it, we know it's coming. And so they're out of land there, and the land is in Chester County. So they're coming here. So we want to make sure we're prepared so when this growth, as it continues, we're not caught off guard having to have our schools overcrowded, and we have to bring in mobile units to put our students in. That's what I don't want is us to get to a place of having to use mobile units. We need our students in brick and mortar buildings where they're safe and secure, that we can monitor their comings and goings in the buildings. And again, with these facilities, they're not a want. That's what I want to make sure we're clear on. Our facilities are not a want. These are what's needed for our district. Of course, again, as I mentioned, the goal, as I stated though, so I won't even go through that, but I want you to keep this in mind. 9 projects, $263 million, and all attendance areas are covered in that. So that's something I want you to keep in mind. 9 projects, 263, and all attendance areas are covered. And again, we'll get into more after we go through the presentation on why that number is that high. Let's have the architects, construction management firm representatives on standby to answer those questions or to help explain how the cost has increased. And as we all know, the cost is, some say, well, it's doubled from before, from 2020. Yes, it has, because as we listen to what the community members said in all parts of our county, some things weren't included. Louisville High School was not included to be replaced, but that was one of the key things that community was needed, and it's true. That was something that's needed, because that facility is an old facility as well. So when you're adding a high school with that square footage, that's part of it. You have the cost escalations with inflation now, materials and those things you have to take into account why the cost is up. But when you're adding, we had another high school. High schools are very expensive. And we also added more projects to this community. Because I understand for this community, a lot of you said, and I'm saying you, but not just necessarily you sitting here, but those who I spoke with we felt Great Falls was being slighted. It's my goal as superintendent not to slight any part of our county. So we went back there and did some further assessments, and that's why Great Falls Elementary was also added. As you recall from the previous referendum, Great Falls Elementary was not being touched at all. So our goal is to try to preserve that campus as much as possible. That is a key fixture in the community here. So that's why we're renovating the gym, and we're going to restore that to a functioning gym and some other components to that facility. So when you add in Great Falls Elementary and a brand new high school building in Louisville, that increased the total ask from before, the 116 that it was before. All right, and again with these facilities, keep in mind that these facilities just won't be just for students. These schools belong to Chester County, to you all, to all of us. And so when schools close, there are events and things that we get asked for now that people want to use our schools for. We will be able to open up our schools and offer them to you all to be used for different events that we have. And the goal, when the bond passes, I'll say when, and that's just what I hope that happens, that we'll have artificial turf on the fields, that there are a lot of athletic things that people want to have in the communities, that we'll be able to utilize those fields, because they're not grass fields, they're artificial turf. So we can have Friday night football, and then have a soccer team or somebody else to use it on that Saturday, because you're not having to worry about the fields being damaged by multiple band or whoever using those fields away from Friday night football or other events. And so let's keep that in mind. Also the fine arts. As you recall, the last referendum had in a fine arts center. And that was a point of contention with the community. So that was removed. I removed that from the plans, the fine arts center. Again, my goal was, I felt with that, my rationale was we don't need a separate facility, a fine arts facility. All we need to do is add in auditoriums at our high schools. That covers fine arts. Having functioning auditorium and spaces for students to assemble for assemblies, events, and for fine arts performances. So we took the Fine Arts Performing Arts Center out, and now we have auditoriums. With this referendum, all 3 high schools will have auditoriums where events can be held for the community and for student use in that plan. And as I mentioned before, and I'll say again before we're done tonight, this referendum will bring about generational change in our county. As we said again, these high schools have not been touched in over 50 years. And the last referendum was back in early 90s, I think it was 1992 and 93, when the last time this district had a referendum. So we are truly behind the times, and to no one's fault, just as things progressed, we kind of went on, and things just didn't happen with our schools. Maintenance was deferred, but again, we're just trying to get our district caught up where it needs to be. And there's a couple of feedback. These are some comments. As we all know, we have a survey online that any of you are welcome to add comments to. Some of you may already have, and so you can go on that. And this is some of the comments that we have, and I'll share. I'll read those for those of you who might be able to see it behind me. And again, we have the good and bad. We're not just picking all the positive. We have the negative ones too. We want you all to see this is what people are saying. This is just a snapshot of that. Our county is way behind on everything compared to other schools that we visit for activities. Our facilities are outdated, lack of available equipment, and the lack of a facility that is safe for our children to be in. I like that Louisville will be getting some improvements. The high school does seem quite dated. I feel it is needed with more people moving into our area. Another comment, please look at the income of the community and what the community can support. Also, please redo the buildings to be cost effective and better represented for the potential growth in the areas, especially Louisville. These bonds have failed continually because the desires of people have been overlooked. Professional architects and capital campaign managers can make things look beautiful, but they cannot change the size of the Chester County population or the average yearly income. We love our schools and support them at a grassroots level, but most of Chester County are simple people that would like to see responsible spending make our schools safe and dependable. So that's just a little snapshot of some of the comments that have been a part of the survey there. There's some feedback from students. I like where we are going to expand schools so we can fit more students and improve the current state of the schools for the student body. I like the plans proposed location for Chester High School and the Career Center across the street from the York Tech Chester campus. This would allow for easier commute for parents who have children at multiple grade levels. I appreciate the modern aesthetics and the renderings and like the plans proposed layout. I especially like the proposed green space areas. Another comment, these are students. I, as a student, will not enjoy any of the things that will be constructed as a result of this plan. With that being said, I will strongly support the proposed plan and think it will allow Chester to continue growing in the years to come. The community of Chester deserves access to the same tools and opportunities given to neighboring school districts. The referendum is a chance to invest in the future generation of Chester. History suggests that investments in products like this always guarantee returns in the form of progress for society. I like the idea of having our own space to practice different sports, rather than using areas around Chester like the baseball field. I also like how JRTC is inside the building. I do not like the plan's focus on sports facilities. As stated above, I feel that money could be better spent on students to improve learning opportunities. I dislike the cost. With all this new school is going to cost a lot of money, but it will be worth it for the long run. And those are just a few comments from students across our district. And so I've asked the staff, and that's what they took it and ran with it, and I wanted you all to see from perspective, to see what high schools look like that's around Chester County. And we start with, in the Fort Mill School District, you have Catawba Ridge High School, York High School in York, Fairfield Central High School. Even though it's an old facility, it's been maintained well, and they've had additions to those, so it's pretty modern looking to me, and how definitely inside the facility there in Winsboro. You have South Point High School in Rock Hill, Indian Land High School in Indian Land, and Chester High School, Louisville High School, and Great Falls High School. So this for perspective, you see what modern high school facilities look like that surround us and what our facilities look like. Just looking at those alone, our facilities are behind, and we just want to make sure we have our students, we bring our schools up to par with our neighbors around. And we're not following them, but again, our students deserve modern facilities throughout this county. At this time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Adam Davis, our Chief Operations Officer, to discuss the things with our architectural firm, and we'll do a little presentation of the plans. And I'll come back before you at the end with some closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Doc. Thank you all for being here tonight, being informed of this plan that we are going to present. I just want to give a shout out to Dr. Sanders, Ms. Taylor, and their staffs. This is not alone Dr. Sutton and senior staff's plan. We've taken a lot of time going with the faculty and staff and also the students of what shortfalls we are in with facilities that aren't modern and up to date. We're not here trying to build Taj Mahals. We're just here to provide safe environments for our students, collaborative learning spaces, and like at the Career Center, offer opportunities for these students to go in the workforce. So tonight we have our construction manager firm, Thompson Turner, Bradley Holtman and Rodney Thompson with us tonight, and our architectural firm, McMillan Paston Smith, who will go through this plan for us tonight. Ben and Peter, if y'all want to come up. Turn it over to you guys.
Good evening. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, members of the school board, and certainly Dr. Sutton and everyone here this evening. Good to be with you. It has been a long several months looking at the opportunities again here in Great Falls as well as the rest of Chester County. So we are pleased tonight to be with you and really talk through the opportunities that we've discovered along the way for how we put together this capital improvements plan overall. We base these capital improvement plans on facts, things about the school district as far as its growth projection, as far as its condition of its existing buildings, and of course the need, as Dr. Sutton spoke towards. Really looking at those and really identifying what is necessary and needed for each one of the individual unique communities here in Chester County. That's the basis of our capital improvements plan. So we started from there. There is a difference between capital improvements plan, which is this building program, and that ongoing maintenance that's going to continue as these buildings get constructed. When we started this process and really looked at how we take that capital improvements plan and base those facts on, and base the capital improvements plan on those facts, we really have to understand visionary wise what direction the school district really wanted to get. So it was really apparent to us as we talked with the school district and heard feedback from both the community and the school, is that maintenance was certainly a central piece of any capital improvements plan. And I start there because what we don't want to happen is we don't want it to not be touched for another 50 years. We want to have not only a capital improvements plan, but a maintainable plan that can put the district in a really good position, not just for these projects, but for the next 50 years, so that you're not in a position, again, where you have to take on significant investment to really improve your schools kind of overall. One thing that was really made clear to us is that program integrity or academics are really the central part of what we are doing here at Chester County School District. Really looking at how academics happens in each one of these campuses. Each one of these campuses is unique, both in terms of its size and its offerings and its focus. So we wanted to take that into account. So academic integrity, program integrity was really important. Dr. Sutton mentioned really having focused here in Chester County on the high school level over the course of the last several decades. You've done a really good job, the school district has done a really good job at the elementary and middle school level from an additions, renovations, and new construction standpoint over those last several decades. But again, it's time to renourish and renew those high schools kind of overall. So how do we get there? You know, that's really our starting point. We went through a visioning session with the school district, both from an administration standpoint and from a board standpoint, from a vision standpoint. But in the field, we really have to take what we learn and ask the question to each one of the schools, what do you need? And that's exactly where we started. We started with principal, we started with administrators here at Great Falls, both at the middle school level and at the high school level, and certainly at the elementary school level as well, to understand what the need was, how they're teaching day in and day out, and respond accordingly with the capital improvements plan overall. So with that being said, we're going to share a lot of information with you tonight, and I apologize for all of the information that we have, because like Dr. Sutton said, it is 10 projects. And we wanted to give you a big overview of all of the projects that are involved, of course, focused here on the Great Falls area. But we'll be available even after the presentation for questions and answers, and I'll certainly make myself available at some of those renderings if you have any specific questions kind of overall. So we're going to start at Great Falls Elementary School, and I'm going to ask Peter here to kind of walk through the master plan, what that master plan means from a construction standpoint, and then at the end of the presentation we'll get into how that's affected by cost and the economy that we're in today. Peter?
And yeah, as Ben mentioned, after this, it may be a little difficult to read some of this. I completely understand, so we'll help take a look at it. I do recommend, if you haven't looked at them already, to look at them, because then you can help generate more questions, and that way we can help you with what is involved with this referendum. So the first project we'll go over is Great Falls Elementary, and so the primary focus of this one especially was creating a clear, identifiable front door to the school, as well as improving safety and security with kind of enclosing that exterior courtyard. So what's included with this is a new administrative wing that's going to really say, this is the front door to our school, this is where all the visitors need to come to, as well as having appropriate stacking associated with that. So it's improvements to the stacking for pickup and drop off, as well as for the bus loop. Again, new administrative wing, and improvements to the gymnasium are going to be in those support spaces that are around the current gym. As you may know, there was originally a stage there, which is no longer there because it's been blocked off. The intent is to give that stage back to the elementary school and actually get a few more toilets adjacent to the gymnasium, so that way students don't have to go all the way onto the corridor to get access to them. The existing cafeteria is small and it's a little unusual shape, and so that makes it really difficult for spacing out all the meals that have to happen in the morning. So what we're looking to do is actually expand the existing cafeteria into a space which is currently occupied by an art classroom and a storage space, which previously were actually in those spaces that were adjacent in the gymnasium. You actually had to go through the gymnasium to access these classroom spaces. They've currently moved them to different locations in the building, but now we're going to put that area to use as to expand the cafeteria. So that being said, that involves moving some classrooms around that currently really don't have a proper home. And so what will go into what's the existing admin space is those 3 classrooms. So you can have your music, art, and another flexible classroom for whatever is necessary for the school to be used for. The final components, regardless of any project that we look at, is we always have to think about if there's a need for expansion in the future and where that goes. And so when you look on the site plan, just to the left of where the existing admin building or the admin office space is, that's where you can have future growth. So that's kind of a very quick rundown of what is involved kind of from a master plan standpoint. We've done a few different renderings just to kind of give you an idea of what this possibly look at. Again, creating that clear, identifiable front door of the school, not really kind of overshadowing the importance, because the gym is historic and we don't want to overshadow it. We want to just kind of be complementary to that. So we have a couple different options we've been discussing with the district as what this could possibly look like, so you get an idea. So that's kind of from the drop off, that's not another option right there. So those are just things that we're looking at as these discussions are continuing for this referendum, is what does that look like, and make sure that it looks appropriate for this space. And so not everyone has been to the school. As part of when we did the facility assessments, we've gone into every single room in all of these schools to help document it. So what we've done is just include a few photos of kind of what the current conditions are. So that's kind of right there at the existing drop-off, which will actually be enclosed with that new admin wing, so that will create a nice secure circulation path for students within the school, so they never have to go outside to access the gymnasium. And that's the existing front door. So as someone who did not go to Great Falls Elementary, it took me a couple times to actually find the front door of the school. So we're looking to make that adjustment as well. So it's very clear for visitors and those that go there every day. This kind of a panorama inside the cafeteria, so it's kind of split up into a couple little wings. So it's just not really functional space. So we're not doing a new addition for the cafeteria. It's just adding more space to it within the existing footprint of the building. And the existing gymnasium. So that right there is where the stage used to be, and it will go back there as part of this referendum. Now for where we are currently sitting right now, Great Falls High School, I'll cover kind of what is included in question 1 of the referendum, and then what is part of question 2. So that way it's a clear distinction to understand what goes into to each question. So as we kind of look at the site plan to the right, that is where you came in for this meeting, and so we're going to do an expansion of the drive to make sure we got appropriate stacking for the school, adding more parking spaces to the front of the high school, and actually do an addition to that to actually have a safe and secure vestibule at the main entrance, which currently does not exist. So we're looking to make improvements to the security of the campus by adding that and making sure that we have an appropriate amount of parking on site. And what's the current location of the old high school, that is where the new addition is going to be. We'll get into the plan in just a second for what that'll look like, but that'll include a competition gym, academic spaces, and support spaces for students. So those are the main parts of question 1. Along with that is the improvements to the circulation that will be at that new building as well. So those are the main points of question 1, is this new drives for both the main entry as well as the new addition, the safety and security vestibule at the high school, and improvements to parking. We'll go back to the site plan, so we'll go take a look at so for question 2 is main athletic components to it. So that is improvements to concessions and ticketing, so there'll be new ticket booth, new concessions, restrooms, there'll be expansion of seating in the stadium, new artificial field, artificial turf, along with the new track. What's currently not on campus is the baseball and softball fields. So we are going to bring those back onto district property. Again, that's part of this idea of safety and security, having everything on your campus so you don't have to do all the unnecessary travel to different locations. With that, we're going to do improvements to have a visitor entry with their own restroom and concessions areas, so it'll be separate, home team and away team, so that we always want to look to find ways of improving that. One thing with the baseball and softball, they'll all have their own batting cages, as well as dedicated locker room spaces for that. As part of the idea of equity across all schools within the district is to also offer tennis courts as well. So I know it's not a program we currently have, but that is one thing we want to make sure is consistent across, is to have the equitable facilities within that. So those are the components of question 2. You'll be able to look at the floor plans over there, maybe a little bit easier, but just understand a competition gym that will be able to support 1,200 spectators. Again, making expansions of the lobby, so right now there's not a lot of space for the spill out between before and after events, to make sure we have that. Concessions, obviously all the restrooms. There's also the academic components within the building will be, that's where you can have your choir and band spaces as well. Locker rooms, weight room, athletic training spaces, coaches' offices. those will all be located in that area that's kind of at that bottom zone right there. One of the things that'll also be kind of part of this is, again, there's needs or improvements that need to happen within the science department. So that's kind of one thing we're looking at as well, is to add improvements to the science labs, get some of the old units replaced, all the hoods, look at that as well. So that is kind of an academic component that's part of that. Again, if there's any expansion, that's always available on the back side of the existing school. So just kind of an idea what this will look like. So this is your renovate or the improved kind of entry drive right there with a canopy out front. So that is just on front of the main entry. And then the next one will be kind of what that competition gym looks like from the street. Make sure that it's something that's very clear and identifiable, but also it's a really important aspect of kind of have a branding of the school. So like, this is our space, this is where the Red Devils compete, so that's really important for us to have. And when you look at that rendering on the right, on the far side near the end, that is where the weight room will be. Again, kind of with that front door, some spill out space in the front, and kind of what that looks like from an aerial with some of those other Part 2 components as well in the background. So that is what is included in the Great Falls zone. Here's some of the photos of the existing conditions. So obviously the front door, the old front door of the high school, and then this kind of looks, so again, when you've kind of gone through these spaces, you know where the needs are, and not everyone gets to see that. And that was part of what we did during this kind of investigation process, of understanding what's the roof condition, do you have moisture issues at the old high school, the exterior wall, like what does that mean? Why these new facilities are really important, as well as not having classrooms that have exterior windows. As those that went to high school there, you're very familiar with that. And the old competition gym. And so Ben will quickly cover, we obviously want to talk about all the high schools, but we'll just quickly cover Louisville High School, the Career Center, as well as Chester High School.
So as Peter was talking, so right here, we're now in the competition gym here at Great Falls High School, right? The idea is that the competition high school replace one of the components of that building is to replace the competition high school over in this zone. This building actually becomes then a second gymnasium to be used for Great Falls, both in terms of PE or in tournaments, or the distinction between middle school and high school. So it'll serve all of the athletics well here into the future. Just briefly and overall for Louisville Elementary and Louisville High School, it is a campus unto itself, even though it's two schools. It's located right next to each other. So we really took a look at this facility as a joint campus between the two. That's important to note here, and I won't spend a lot of time on kind of the traffic patterns and those kind of things, but it is really important that you consider that for Louisville High School and Elementary School, because they all have to work together to keep kids off of the main road, or get kids into and out of the elementary school and the high school campus off of that main road overall. For the elementary school, there are a series of additions to that to really bring back the 5th grade to Louisville Elementary School. That's in addition to that campus, plus we are going to do some safety and security features and upgrades to that school as well, mostly to do with fire department access and parking in that zone. I'm sure just about everybody is aware of this campus within the district. One notable thing about Louisville High School as a campus is that it's on a very small piece of land for a high school campus. So knowing that the district wanted to pursue the replacement of that facility, our first step was to look at what's available and what can we use on the property itself so that we can make that work while kids continue to operate on that campus during construction. The approach that we took was the same here at Great Falls High School. We engaged the teachers, we engaged the principal and her staff to really understand what they need first and foremost from the building, and then analyze the site to understand how it can all fit onto that property. So in the back of that campus is a baseball and softball field. The first part of this program is actually to replace that baseball softball field across the street, thereby freeing up some area in which we can build that new campus on overall. Because the property is so small, we do have to think about multi-story construction there. That's the most economic and efficient way to really bring that building up. So you can see that dark box at the top of the screen there. That's the new footprint of the high school, and that is directly behind the existing footprint of the operating Louisville High School. Once that is built, the old high school will be demolished in total and replaced with the balance of circulation drives, parking, pedestrian access points, and the like all the way around there. Just as Peter was mentioning equity as far as athletic facilities overall, this program has some needs from an athletic standpoint as well, which we'll talk about as either question 1 or question 2, but we really looked at how can we balance what's needed out there from an athletic standpoint and still maintain some similarities across the district as well. Like I said, it is a multi-story facility. It is a comprehensive high school. The campus itself has academic, for this specific design, is academic wings on the right-hand side of this plan predominantly, and then all of the arts and special programs on the left-hand side. Right there in the center is the front door, the identifiable front door, and it is a 2-story facility like I mentioned. Just like here at Great Falls, this one would have a competition gymnasium as well as an auxiliary gymnasium, and it would also include a performing arts style theater in addition to it. Very similar, a larger increase in size just based on its population than what you have at the Little Theater here at Great Falls Middle High. Again, second floor contains every piece that a fully modern, comprehensive high school would contain as part of its construction. It does have that identifiable, since it is multi-story, it does have that identifiable front entry. You certainly know where to go as you pull onto the campus. It does have that modern aesthetic, and that's one thing that came to us from not us looking at it and not wanting that out of it, but actually talking with the staff and talking with the teachers and the administrators at that facility kind of overall. Brick is the main material here, with some flourishes of light and windows and paneling on the outside of this facility. You can see here just kind of overall the aerial view and all the circulation patterns that we've had to really make this facility really work on that campus that it's on right now. It does have, just like every school, high school in the district is conceived to have, a separate identifiable front or entry for its theater for after hours use as well. For all of these, kids are really, the focus is the academic portion, even where that academic portion comes to the outside, giving those students the availability to not only work on the inside, but bring their academic world into the exterior as well. Just a few front entry shots. Louisville High School, as it is, its front entry right now. Several portables out there. So, as part of this capital improvements plan, bringing all of that under one roof, so to speak, and giving adequate space for not only its academics, but also for things like as simple as storage and making sure that it's that all the equipment is working properly and that we have all the lighting and furniture that we need as part of any comprehensive facility on this campus. That's Louisville High School. Just quickly, Chester High School, and on this piece of property also includes the Career Center as a replacement for both sides of that campus as it is now. On the right-hand side of this campus is the high school, and on the left-hand side of the screen, you can see that's the Career Center kind of overall. The same premises that we have here at Great Falls and at Louisville apply to Chester. Same kind of setup as far as competition gyms, auxiliary gyms, identifiable front door, and making sure that we got the academic component just right for not only what they're doing now from a population standpoint, enrollment standpoint, but what they will have into the future as well. We'll talk just very briefly, I'll just do it through this side. The Career Center itself, the Career Center is under design right now. We're moving full steam ahead on that. It has been reviewed by the Office of School Facilities for the state of South Carolina, which is great. And it is planned to be phased over the next term, several years. So it does have the replacement of all of the programs that are at the current Career Center, and those current programs have been either expanded or the spaces have been added to really accommodate what is necessary for today's career and technical education programming within that facility. There are a few additional programs that the district is going to be bringing on board to this facility as those programs continue to develop kind of overall. It really is, and it has a lot of different, we've spent a lot of time talking about what this building, how it should look and how it should appeal, and I think you'll see the rendering is one of the final versions of that. But we really wanted to, and the school really wanted to represent that it is modern, that it does have, that it wants to convey of all the interesting technical and career programs that are going on the inside. So you can see the form of this facility kind of represents that overall as well. This is the existing, just as a contrast, this is the existing entry for Chester Career Center as it is today. That building, as Peter mentioned, we looked at all the buildings, has its own series of problems from a roofing standpoint, from a building, from a water infiltration standpoint, and from a building envelope standpoint. Not to mention from just an interior finish standpoint, kind of overall. And finally, Chester High School. This one is meant to and intended to be the largest of the three high schools simply because of the enrollment size of that area of Chester County. And you can see that main front entry at the bottom right of the facility. Again, identifiable front entry. 2 gymnasiums to serve the purpose there, theater sized for that population, and several academic wings revolving around those core functions. It is multi-story as well. For a facility of this size, that is the most efficient and economical way to construct this building. Kind of overall, you can see here at the end just the aerial view of the high school in the foreground and the Career Center in the background, in addition to all of its drives and parking components that go into it. In the rear of the campus are full replacements of stadium, baseball, all those competition components that we mentioned earlier. Just a few additional shots of that entry. Again, meant to convey modern, contemporary school construction, just as other facilities are in this area of the state of South Carolina. But really, again, focusing on indoor, outdoor, and academics, and the learning environment extension from the inside to the outside. Just a few last parting photos. Many portables at the existing campus, as well as its own set of roofing and building envelope concerns, as well as safety and security being a primary objective to really understand this, to really replace this facility and make the new facility be as safe and as secure as it can be, in contrast to what is currently Chester High School overall. All right, that is a lot of information, a lot of projects. As I mentioned, I think it said 10, but 9 projects kind of overall within this facility, this capital improvements plan. So if we look at it from question 1 to question 2, what we mean by that is question 1 is really focused on academics, that program integrity, and the things that the district has determined as the priority for this school district. So you'll see in question 1, the Career Center, the phase 2 and 3 of the Career Center. Like I said, it's multi-phase, and the district's moving forward with phase 1. But as part of the referendum question 1, rather than paying for it over the course of 3 to 4 years, as part of the referendum, funded fully and completely as part of question 1. New Chester High School, new Louisville High School, and the new campus here for Great Falls High School building replacement as well. Great Falls Elementary School additions and renovations are included in question 1 and that kind of really rounds out that academic portion of the question. Question 2, the school district really believes that they need those facilities, but those are more athletic in nature than certainly the academics that are listed in question 1. So you'll see New Chester High School Stadium and Sports Complex, Louisville High School athletic improvements, and Great Falls athletic improvements as well, totaling those up for a separate question. I'm sure Ms. Jeanette and others might talk about how that works overall as far as voting. But really that's the basis of the capital improvements plan. Glad to answer anything about that after we get through the presentation, but thanks for your attention. I know it's a lot of information, and we're glad to really be involved and get you guys what you need overall.
All right, we will have our Chief Financial Officer, Ms. Miller. Give a round of applause for that. Thank you for going through that. We'll now have our Chief Financial Officer, Ms. Melanie Jeanette, come up to discuss the property tax impact. And what's the next thing? One other thing on there.
Good question.
The questions. But the agenda, please.
Good evening, folks. As Dr. Sutton said, my name is Melanie Jeanette, and I serve as the Chief Financial Officer for the school district. And I'm here to talk about the financial impact of this referendum. Let me please say that when the referendum passes, we will not issue $263 million worth of bonds the Monday following. This will be incremental over time. And when our financial advisor, Mr. Bob Dameron with Compass Municipal Advisors, gave us our estimates, he did it at a little bit of higher interest rate to be conservative in our estimates of the cost. We are hoping it will not be this expensive. This is an example of what it could be based on what we know now and what our friends at Thompson Turner have given us as far as construction costs. The information you see up here is also included on our website. We have a whole website that Mr. Kristoff has designed dedicated to the referendum. If you have a $100,000 home in Chester County, your annual increase would be $406 for the cost of the referendum, or the equivalent of $1.12 a day. Now, you know you don't pay it daily, but just to put that into perspective, it would be the equivalent of $1.12 a day. Okay? Total construction cost on a car valued at $10,000 would be $60.90 a year, or 17 cents a day. Again, we will not issue the entire bonding value of the referendum on day one. This will be over time. I have talked to both the county auditor and the county tax assessor, and I will share with you that the average value of a home in Chester County is $102,000. Average. Okay? I'm not saying yours is over or under, but average. That gives you some perspective of the $406. Okay? The average car value in Chester County, according to our county officials, is $6,200. So the impact would be less than, an increase would be less than $60.90. So that kind of puts it into perspective. Hopefully you picked up or were given some information when you came in. If you don't, please pick it up. But we also have values based on different levels of your home owner-occupied, your non-owner occupied homes, commercial personal property, and vehicles at different values. I urge you to look at those, knowing what your value of your personal property is and your owner-occupied property, or if you own non-owner occupied property such as rental or anything else in Chester County, to give you some kind of idea of what those costs are going to be. So we provide you a bunch of different examples, but let me emphasize again, we will not issue all of these bonds on day one. Actually, the way we're looking at it is that those bonds would not be issued until 2024. We can issue what's called a bond anticipation note that will get us started, and the tax impact will come down the road. So again, will not be on day one, but we want to give you some different examples of what the impact could be to the residents of Chester County. The other thing that Dr. Sutton and Mr. Thompson referenced is that the ballot question on May 14th will be in two parts. I think both Dr. Sutton and Mr. Thompson referenced the academic side and the athletic side, so there will be two questions on the referendum. Question one is, may the Board of Trustees of the school district issue bonds for a total of $220 million, which will be the academic improvements that we've talked about and that you've seen tonight in the presentation. Then, and only then, if question one passes, you would vote on question two, which is the academic improvements, renovations, and replacements at the three high schools. So the referendum in total is $263 million, but on the question is two separate parts. So we wanted to present that to you so you know what you will be seeing when you go to the ballot box on May 14th. There's, if you don't already have it, there's examples over there, and we encourage you to go ahead and look through them and become very familiar with them.
And also, as issuing the bonds later on, keep in mind too, as this county continues to grow, because it will grow. So I spoke with some county officials last week, and I know there are about 4,400 homes that are already approved for this county. 4,400, so you take what we currently have and add that, all those will also be paying into this as well. So that also helps with the taxpayer. What you're currently paying, that will decrease over a period of time, and you'll be able to pay it off quickly because we'll have more residents throughout the county. And also, one other thing we're in the process of still finishing up is our impact fee study. And with that study, that information will be able to utilize and speak with county council because they have to eventually approve it. What that cost will be for every new home in the county, what's paid up front, and that money will come into a special fund that we'll be able to use to help pay this down as well. So that's also, I also want to make sure I mention that to you all. So at this time, we'll open the floor for questions or feedback. Again, if you have feedback to share, you can do that, or you have a specific question. And again, if something we don't know, I'm the type of person. Some of you met with me, some of you met me in my office. If something I don't know, I don't know, but I'll find out the answer. I think I have enough people here, over here and behind me, that we can make sure we get everything answered that you might have. So, Mr. Christoph, where should they come and stand? You have a mic? They probably can stand, we're close enough and we can stand where you are. So, I'm assuming if you have a question or comment you would like to stand up, we'll treat it like a big old class where you can raise your hand and we'll try to acknowledge you and you can ask a question or give any comments. And then if myself or any of my staff members or the others can answer for you. Yes, sir.
Dr. Sutton, thank you, board members that are here. A couple of questions. First, about addressing the fact that the board members are large. I ask you where the rest of it?
Yeah, well,
Is this designed because these board members represent this area? Or where, like I said, where are the rest of our board members?
yes. Well, they weren't required to come, sir, because again, this was a function put on by the administration, so they weren't they weren't required to come. So some of them may have other obligations, and they'll be spread out. Sometimes they'll be spread out. Another thing, if they came, too many of them, it would be considered a meeting, and it would be in violation. So we had more than 4. We don't have more than 4, do we? No. Okay, just making sure. 1, 2, 3. So we're good.
Second question, real quick, and I'll get out of here. A lot of the problems with our existing schools are roof leaks, which lead to major things. My question is, what type of roof are we proposing to put on these projects? Everything I see kind of looks flat. Now, enlighten me. What are we looking at?
Excuse me, very good question. Water does run downhill, right? I mean, it has to. And I think you're right. There are some significant problems with roofing as it is right now. So on each one of these projects, there's a mix of what we call lower slope type of roof and pitched roof, which is traditional, metal standing seam metal roof on it. You can't get rid of low slope roof overall, simply because you have those huge mechanical units that we have to put on schools today, but we try our best to really limit that as much as we can. When I say low slope, don't think flat. It's required by code. It's required by the roofing manufacturer to be warranted for anywhere from 25 to 30 years. So it has to be at a specific pitch, even though it might look flat from the road. So back behind those parapets is a lower slope roof, but it is definitely warranted for the next 25 to 30 years overall. It is likely going to be a built-up roof, which is a high-performing roof back behind there when it's not standing seam metal roof or pitched roof. Does that answer your question, sir?
Mild slope roof, proper drainage,
Absolutely.
Backside wall.
Yes. Yes, sir. Each one of those roofs will have a series of not only primary drains spaced at the required code compliant spacing, but also will have emergency drains and relief drains, so that you have a series of ways that water will not build up on roofs, because that's the worst thing you can do for a building, is let water permeate the roof membrane overall. Absolutely. Yep. The selection of the material is definitely based on something that can be easily repaired and easily taken care of for the years. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Good question. Another key thing I just want to mention with that is we've looked at the things that have occurred with these facilities over the past, over the years, and we're making sure we do the opposite. A lot of things weren't maintained. Those flat roofs, I don't know who were designing these buildings back then, but I'm sure they're out of business right now, those architects and those firms. But most of our schools, they have flat roofs, and that's causing a lot of issues right now. A lot of major issues with these facilities with these flat roofs. So we're taking note of that. All right. Any other questions, feedback? Yes, sir.
Do I have a question?
Yes.
So if I'm understanding correctly, the life on the bond is 25 years. The lifespan of the bond is 25 years, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, how much would it cost in maintenance to maintain what we still have for the same length of time? Would that be more than 263 million? The same amount? Less?
Really hard question to answer, right? There's so many variables within that question. Here are a couple things that I do. One is to replace even what you have right now is not possible given your debt limit. So you have to go out for a referendum if you want a significant improvement here in Chester County for just about everything. The debt limit here is not such that you can even go and replace roofs. You can't even do a big project like that. To maintain. It's that severe as far as the capital requirements for this county. Over the long term, if you were looking at it in those terms, Brian, there's no way that you can catch up overall within the district to really improve schools the way that they need to be improved over that 25 years. There's just simply no way for the district to continue to save enough money to generate the returns necessary to not only build one school, but really improve the entire district overall. I don't mean to dodge the question. It's a complicated question. I hope that gives some advice to it. Anything you want to add to that?
I'm glad you're here to answer that one, because that was going to be an I don't know question if you had to try to answer. But put it in perspective again, the board has not increased the debt millage in several years. It's right at 48 mills right now, and that generates about $6.5 million, roughly about $6.5 million a year that was already on your tax bills now that we generate, and that's what we're using some of that to start the curriculum with phase 1. So again, if this bond were to fail, I hope it does, but if it does, we would have to, that's why the curriculum is in phases. What we're currently getting in already from taxpayers right now is about $6.5 million a year. The curriculum in total is about $43 million. So if we were to, if you take 263 and divide it into $6.5 million, that would give you an idea of how many years it would take. What's that? Who has a phone out? 263 divided by 6.5. 263 divided by 6.5. 40.4. So it would take us, if we do away with the bond referendum and continue, and the board doesn't raise the millage, and we continue to get about $6.5 million or so a year, it would take about 40 years to complete this plan. 40 years. And keep in mind, we're already 50 years from where we came from. And so you think you add 40 more years onto that. Just put things into perspective. If we do nothing. All right. Great Falls Elementary Gym, he asked how much of being demolished. None of it, correct? Just this, what's the word I'm looking for? Bringing it back to a fully functional gym. So nothing's being demolished. Well, yeah, because it will be that it will have a stage, but it will be like a fully functioning gym. And we're just bringing the stage back so they could use that to have for events and things in it, but there will be a stage for performances and those kinds of things.
So my next question is, if we take into consideration the renovations here at the high school, how in inclement weather would we crush it?
In inclement weather, well, the schools are built to code, and I can explain the code, but all facilities have to be built to a certain code where the building material and the structure of it, they will be able to withstand tornadoes or whatever it is, where we have to keep our students in. But you want to add to that, Fonz?
So I think if I understand your question right, is how do students travel in and around the campus during the day during inclement weather? Sure. Right. So a couple ways. At the elementary school, right now I'll give you an example. At the elementary school, you do have to go outside as a student to get to that gymnasium space, kind of overall. That's not ideal. So as an addition to that campus, and as required to get out of inclement weather, we're enclosing that so that you have a corridor to walk inside there. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So one thing that we really try to do with glass that we show or glass that we locate in any of these facilities is really put those in the places where they have the biggest impact. So I know we focused on exteriors at the front entry, and that's really where you get the majority of glass. But for the rest of the campus, it really is built to first meet code, obviously. But also it's really sturdy, and there's not that many, for a gymnasium like this, there's not a lot of glazing that goes into gymnasium. So if it's a safety standpoint for an emergency situation, which I think is what you're asking, it still has and still will be kind of greater than the facilities that you have from a quality standpoint. But we really did try to focus just glazing and some of those nice features in specific zones. First, that limits the cost. But secondly, it also improves kind of safety and security overall for the rest of the campus. Does that answer the question?
So the facility that we have right now, the only place that I know of where there's not glass blown would be the auditorium. Is that right?
Here on this campus?
On this campus, yes.
I think that's right. I mean, there's no windows in this facility.
I mean, that's your school, yes, sir.
Yeah, so if a tornado or anything occurs, then we're going to go in the core of the building, whether it be the hallway or anything like that, to where we're not on the corridors where the windows are, where the cafeteria is at.
Place in this facility, other than the auditorium, where you would not be where that glass is in those corridors.
If we're in the interior classroom spaces. Obviously, you've got some outside doors to where you have some windows, but the core part of the building, there wouldn't be glass. There wouldn't be any windows.
What were one of those four places?
Well, we can, if we can take a walk in the hallway and take a look at that.
I'd like to, if I was one of the first classes that went to this school here, and I'm certain that the only place there would be that auditorium. So unless we're planning on doing renovation, change some of that retrofit, we have safe there, then we're still in the same area. But
Okay.
I'd like to
Okay.
Yeah, we can have a conversation. I got you.
next thing I want to ask Lance is, so when we talk about community and how this impacts community, what would be Great Falls shelter area after we demolish the old building or the old school?
And that's a good question. I wasn't sure that was still this camp was still being used for that. So that's something I didn't realize that was still.
I do know that's what we used during the big deal fire. Now, I do know a few years ago, we had to open up shelters over the place that we opened up. Great Falls Middle School, we didn't open this one. But in the past, we used this because of the way it was built, like a bomb. I think that was really good.
Yeah, all of our campuses are being looked at as far as emergency management with Mr. Ed Darby with the county. So we've got to go through different protocols and walkthroughs with the Red Cross, DSS, and things of that nature to make sure we still have the protocols in place that we meet their requirements. They have their own requirements now that meet emergency management's regulations as far as what can be a shelter and what can't be a shelter. A lot of it has to do with square footage, roofing membrane, the structure of the building as well. So all of that becomes a factor.
That don't sound good, so that didn't answer the question. So what are we using in this town, in this community, for our shelter after we demolish this?
The school will still be a shelter. Yes, sir.
Oh, and the new addition. There'll be spaces in the new addition to this campus that will be able to be utilized as well.
I understand it can be utilized, but I want to make sure that that's getting put in there. Not only it can be utilized, but that it will be able.
Oh, yes, sir. And again, we're not cutting anything out from what's already existing, what's already in place. Yes, no, that won't happen. Again, these schools belong to the community, so we'll make sure. Again, pretty much that's done for all over the country for our schools. That's the primary place where they go for shelter, that kind of thing. So we have to meet those guidelines so that our schools can be utilized for that. But good question. Again, you brought up a good point. So I want to offer you all, if any of you want to come through, you can schedule with us to tour the facility, do anything like that. We welcome that. Any of the schools that are on the list, if you want to do that, just reach out to us and we'll set up a time. A team, we'll take you through a tour of these facilities so you can truly see what they look like and what they are now. So I'm glad you brought that up, because that triggered me to mention that. So thank you for those questions. Any other questions or feedback? Yes.
Academic classes, like the science labs and stuff like that. Last time we specifically said something to that effect. This one just says academic stuff.
So that was science labs, correct? You mentioned? Yeah, and we actually the team went back out and checked on those labs a few weeks back. After board member Ms. Ford brought it up at our work session in January, the team went by, gave them a directive to come back out, and they spoke with staff again, and that will be part of what's already in the contingency, so there will be modifications to those labs. to meet for the high school courses. And I think some of the last spaces just need to be updated in general. So that will be factored in. Yes. Yes, sir.
I've got a question about the ballot. So, this ballot is very similar to the one that was written before without any guardrails on it. It gives one big chunk of money and it lists the projects out. And we had a big problem with that last time because there was some trust issues with the board and what they would do and what they could do. And it's pretty much the way it's written, it's basically not a blank check, but it's a $263 million check. And you can do pretty much any project on here that you want in any order that you want. So is this going to change? Is it going to stay this way?
Well, that's feedback we're making a note that we can look at that and see if we need to add based on your question getting to something as far as putting the actual amounts next to it, like what's on here is what you're asking? What's yours?
Yes, that's right. That way you get to the point where there's money allocated for each project on here, and then there's a contingency to cover whatever else may come up. Because sometimes we all know the projects go over, projects come under, so if there's you put the line items on there, you put the dollar amounts out, and then you have a contingency line, so if something costs an extra $500,000 or something, the funds are already available that you can do something with. I think that would make a lot of people a lot more comfortable with this. I know it would make me more comfortable. And I'll just speak with me right now, but that was a big problem I had with the last one.
Okay.
And that was driving me. The other thing about the way this is split this question, if we vote yes for question 1, no for question 2, Louisville High School is SOL. Because without moving those ball fields, you can't do anything over there. So.
And I would think we would be able to even answer that part.
Actually, I'm glad you picked up on that because that is a fundamental to that plan. So that has to be included, those ball fields, baseball and softball. Not the track improvements or the turf improvements or any of the buildings surrounding those athletics on the campus that's there now. Those are not included in question 1, but because question 1 has a new high school, we have to move those ball fields. So it is included in that cost.
So that is included in question 1?
Correct.
It's just not really spelled out real well.
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
And one other thing you triggered me to remember, and I didn't have that in my notes, I'm glad you brought that up, is one thing I want to do, is what for in the past is to have a citizens kind of review board of some sort that represents from all parts of the county to be able to meet periodically with the district to track or receive information as we spend the funds. We'll be able to share the information with this committee. So that's one of the things I already had, but I didn't have it on my particular notes tonight, but your question triggered that. So that's one of the things I can assure the superintendent that I will implement for this referendum, is to have that citizen review type committee to meet periodically to receive updates on the funds and how we're using them, or what they've already spent on, and those kinds of things. Just to help with the trust issues from the past. All right.
Maybe this is sort of akin to what he's talking about in the 2020 capital improvement plan that used to be on the district website. It gave the direct construction costs for new construction, for heavy renovation, for light renovation, and it broke it down so that people can understand exactly how much is being spent on new construction. Because as I look at Great Falls Elementary, I understand the entranceway and the security, but all I can really see, other than renovation and redoing some driveways, is 2 classrooms, music and art type classrooms. On the high school, again, Great Falls, a lot of athletic stuff, but we want to emphasize the academic. And because because of the softball field last bond referendum, they wiped out the 2 new science labs. And the only 2 new construction classrooms I can see at the high school are band and art. So I'd like to know the square footage of the final projection of the high school and the elementary school, and how much is actual new construction and how much is old deferred maintenance that should have been maintained. And that will go the same for Louisville Elementary, and the previous bond was going to be $1,800,000. But we got to hurry up and have the referendum in May because of the cost of materials. But it's projected that in this new referendum, that it's only going to cost $1,900,000 for the same 85 students to come back from the middle school. So there's some sort of discrepancies that would pinpoint and maybe save a couple of $1 million here and there. And I know you're going for the big and then it'll come back. But we've been paying the 48 mills and our buildings have been paid for. And phase 1 of the Career Center is that $20 million that I couldn't find 2 years ago, and Dr. Bain was going to talk with me about it and tell me where it was. So if you could give us a capital improvements plan and let us know how much the costs are and address my concerns right now.
Yes, ma'am. And if I can we'll get your information at the end, because that's something we would have to probably sit down and pull together in a document. We have the plan, right? Yeah, so that's something we can be able to give you. Yeah.
For some of those, like you mentioned the cost per square foot number as kind of the basis, and that's how we start, right? That's why we have these guys, these contractors with us to go and do that as well. That has been presented to the board. It's not a part of this just because of the length of the presentation, but we have presented that to the board, and I think it will be available as a document. Yes, ma'am. That's right.
And was land looked for Louisville High School in any other place? Because it seems that according to the old referendums, that Chester High School was built for 1,500 people. Louisville High School was built for 700. And now you're building a new high school saying that we're going to have 600 for 600. Well, that's actually a smaller footprint. And you mentioned I don't know how many thousand homes you mentioned in Richburg, just on 901 and number 9. I've got the printout from Robert Long as to how many. So the new high school will be obsolete if it's built in 5 years, because I've got how many extra students will be there in 5 years. So I think maybe I know I've looked at the demographics.
So Louisville High School, right, start there. Current enrollment is around 400. I don't have the number off the top of my head. It is built for 600, so that's a sizable increase that can, at least from a projection and a reasonableness standpoint, be accommodated over the next 5 to 10 years. One thing that we do, to your point though, is that we never want to pigeonhole that you can't add to these buildings overall. So there are places in which you can add, and I know you hear, when Ms. Jeanette talks about maybe like impact fees, for instance, that's another funding mechanism that as the district continues to grow, that those funds apply to those things like additions that kind of allow the school district and allow that building to grow kind of overall. So it's all built on being as economical as we can right now, of course.
building in some flexibility right now, of course, and that flexibility in the example of Louisville High School is 400 is around the existing population. Go ahead and building in 600, a 600 student population availability, but also then providing another addition to allow for any further growth after that. Sure.
This is Dr. Simon. There's a perception, there is very much so, I think you know that, I think everybody here knows. I think y'all know that, I think everybody here knows that. There is a view in the community that part of the reason, yes, and it may be true the costs are going up. I know I work in heavy equipment, the cost of steel going up, everything's going up, rent's going up. But there is a very deep belief that y'all are running this, or going to do this in May, because if it fails again, you will try it again in November. Will you commit here today and to us in public that is not the plan, and you have no plans on doing that? That has never been discussed.
It has been discussed, and you learn things about me. I have no reason to lie to anybody in this county.
Okay.
It has been discussed. Again, the reason behind it is that if we get to May for something that doesn't pass, we need to regroup. And that's what districts do. As Clover does the same thing.
The same plan.
Oh, no, because that don't make any sense if it's the same plan. What we would,
The previous administration discussed it. The previous administration, why we have a trust issue here, the previous administration told us about charts that, whether it was intentional or not, was misleading because those charts never existed and the board members knew they never existed at the time we were being told about them. So you're going to have to work, you see, and that's all.
yes, I appreciate that. But I ask everyone in here, as I've shared with other groups, look at this face. I came here July 1st, 2020. Look at this face. Let's leave the previous administration alone and trust me on this. I'm a man of my word. And as you just asked, and I answered, right? In front of everybody. That's one thing you're going to get from me. And some of you in here has met me in my office. And no, I'm not going to sit there and lie to you because I have to sleep at night. I love to sleep. And I want to sleep and have good dreams. So I'm going to give you the truth. Yes, if for some reason this referendum fails in May, the plan is to regroup, continue to have these meetings in the community to find out what we need to change with that. And then if we see we have a good enough plan, we can adjust it where we possibly could pass a second time, then we would possibly attempt to do it in November again. Yes, sir.
All right, well, I thank you and I respect you for that answer. I really don't think, I don't get that vibe from you at all, that you're trying to give a rope around. But you also understand it's not just hurt feelings, it's, and this has been going on since my granddad was on the board in '61, that there have been, this is a good old boy system that's sort of been alive and well, so.
Yeah. Well, I'm asking, give me a chance.
All right.
Give me a chance. Yes.
These plans that we are looking at now basically are the same plans that was presented last time.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a little different, you're shaking your heads no, but yes, it is because y'all are the same group that did it last time. So don't shake your heads no when I've seen them all around. A few things have changed, a very few things. But if you look at it, are these schools gonna start all together at the same time? Because I want to know that the money that we are putting in from Edgemore to the Louisville department is going to where they say it's gonna go, and the part that Great Falls is paying is going to where they're going, because we have a problem with things being done in Chester and then the little sidelines don't get done to the other schools. So you can't tell me that some of this stuff's not the same thing, because I sat in on every meeting the last time. I've seen this, and you've got a few little shapes and differences, little canopies and stuff like that. Yes, that's different. I will go with you on that. But we had 900 for Louisville, or 700 for Louisville the last time. We got 600 this time. Paper approves, and I'm looking at the same thing she's saying. Homes coming in, 2,000 people. Homes coming in to the Louisville. So you got to look at that, and I know you're saying not 10. years down the line. But just because you're looking at 10 years down the line, there's gonna be another big referendum. We're already trying to pay off everything that we've done to start with. I thought we were out of debt when we were last year, but now a while ago, it was said that we were paying off some debt. So how are we paying off debt when there's nothing being built yet? Everything is sitting. Only thing that was bought was that property that y'all bought after the referendum went through and it was voted no on. And you took the money from somewhere else, the $20,000 that was there, that $20 million that was there on the paper at one time, and then we couldn't find it. We've gone back through all the records and stuff. So that's what makes me think, how is this going to work? I told you in your office, how is this going to work? If you're not going to start them all at the same time, not going to equal the money out, you better not come to Louisville because Louisville's not going to take it.
And if you recall from our discussion, the goal is to start them on time, and definitely those high school projects. Yeah, that's the plan to do that. As long as we have the structure management firm will help us with that, but we're not going to just focus on one area and not the other. That wouldn't be, that's not a fair thing to do.
I have a trust issue with this group. It's because they were the bank. And there was a whole bunch of things covered. I don't understand how we go back to the same group. When did you put this out on the thing bids? When did you put it out there and how long did it stay and how long before they came in? I mean, share all of that with us because that's a part of all of our trust. That is the beginning and the ending with what it starts.
Thank you for that. And I'll share with you, when I came in, it wasn't feasible. That was going to cost us way more money if we were to start all over again. We discussed that. There wasn't a need to start over plans because as you mentioned, some of the projects are the same. That is true, they are. The need still exists, even though it failed in 2020, there was a need to redo Chester High School's plan when we still need the high school, right? The Louisville High School, of course, that's the new plan. Again, before it was just to expand the cafeteria with some minor renovations being done there.
It's not needed to start with.
Right. And that was removed, right?
So we kept telling them that, but they kept looking at us and telling us, y'all are crazy, that's what you need down there. I mean, we're paying for a building that we use over there is, what's the name of the building? Gateway. They use it all the time, but you know what? It's awfully funny that there was a lot of money paid out to use the Gateway last year and the years before in the past. Why don't you use the cafeterias and the auditoriums and things just like we used to do if we had something big? I mean, the high schools need to be used, not separated. And there's a lot of things, and I've been sitting here listening to all the movies and stuff, but you're not my favorite because I know you covered up a lot of things and I don't like it. So I'm very disappointed that you're like that.
Well, I would say this. Their part was to design the schools, right? They've done their part. They haven't done anything wrong in doing that. Again, as I've shared with the gentleman here, now it shifts over to this phase and my staff. And I've asked you all to give me a chance. I'm not from the old regime. We will discuss these. We can be able to monitor these as we go through. McMillan Patterson Smith didn't do anything wrong. There wasn't a reason to start over with new architects and have to pay up the money that was already paid for the design to start over. That would be a waste of taxpayer dollars. Of course, some plans.
We wasted more taxpayer money last time by paying a firm to come in and do all the paperwork for $20 million. So let's go.
It was public relations firm.
Public relations firm. So I mean, it is.
Right. And again, as I stated, we're looking at doing things differently from before. Again, look at this superintendent of this district and give me a chance. And as you know, anybody who needs to reach out to me, you call. I'm going to call you back, and you're going to come to my office and meet with me, and I'm going to hear you out. I don't turn anybody away, but again, I'm trying to get one that, let's not focus on before. We're starting new. Give me a chance from July 1st, 2020. Let's move forward. Hang with me until I prove you otherwise. That's all I ask. That's all I can tell you. You can check out other districts where I've been, and people will tell you I'm a man of integrity and character. I wouldn't stand up here and lie to you on anything. That's not me. That's not how I was raised. So actually, you ought to give me a chance at leading this district to move through with this referendum. Hopefully it passes, and let us build these schools. And you all come along with for the ride, and you can monitor as we move through and see how the money's spent.
I think you do your own PR work.
Yes, sir. I appreciate that.
You should. I really do. I think you should do that.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for that. Anyone else? Again, if you think,
So, excuse me, so am I understanding that with some suggestions from various community members and real concerns, that the plan that we're seeing right here, since it's not in stone, this is a rendition. We got used to that word before. This is a rendition of what could be with X amount of dollars. Are you saying that this plan can change?
between now and May, we really want to try to have it set in stone before then, because we don't want to get to May and then have to change it.
How can we get the plan to change? You're not going to change after this little meeting.
Not correct, this is our first one, so we've got to get through,
You're not going
yes.
to change there.
Right.
You may end up saying, well, you know, she was right. We can build 2 classrooms down here for 1.9 million. We ought to be able to build 1.9 million down in Great Falls instead of 19 million.
Yes.
So you may see some things, but how do we know that you're going to apply these things that you're seeing?
All we can do is listen, just understand. You realize it's impossible to take everything everyone throughout this county says and implement it, right? There's no way to do that.
Give us a deadline then, say by April the 15th, we are going to have in stone what we're going to ask the people to vote on.
That's something we need to discuss that time. Yeah, we need to adjust before.
We need,
Yes.
all right, give us a date so that we don't sit here and ponder all the questions that we have that we think will make an improvement. And then let the people try to be on your side. Try to, you know, saying, instead of being the naysayers, you're going to have to address the real concerns that those of us who have heard the misleading information have been satisfied.
What I think will work better is if we schedule a meeting to sit down with me and our team so we can fully address, because it'll be hard to do in this kind of setting where we can take firm notes and look at some things. If you had a table or something, might be best. So after we're done with this, if I can get your contact information, let's set up a time we can sit down and meet and kind of go over anything. I would love to do that. So we can make sure everything's addressed. We can help you understand. So I can fully understand what you're asking, and we could go back and forth that way. So please hang around. Don't leave when we're done. So get your information. Yes.
I got one more thing. Over at the Louisville campus, we're talking that Chester's 900 students, Louisville designed for 600. I mean, if we expand Louisville later on, well, what happens is the auditorium is only designed for 420 versus the 660 if we go to 600 students. When I did the math, the continued growth in the area, you take half the students you send to Louisville, half you send to Chester, Louisville would be at 629 students on a campus you built for 600. So my request would be that if you could go back and look at that again and see if that's really what we want to do. You know, if we got a 20-year plan, I would be a whole lot more comfortable with it than an 8 to 10-year plan, because it's a 25-year bond.
So you're saying, make sure I get this clear. Water. Getting parts here. In essence, you're saying you want to increase Louisville High size. And so if we do that, that increases to 263. Is that what I'll make sure I'm clear on what you're asking.
The difference between the Chester plan and Louisville is $11 million. You can take Louisville from 600 to 900 students. I'm round numbers, right? Based off what's on the plan here. Maybe a little more, a little less. maybe a little less, because we don't have all the special needs stuff that Chester High School has, because that's where all the special needs kids in high school go is in Chester. Anyway, there's probably a few savings there, but I think we should look at it again. If we're going to spend $263 million, and in 10 years, Louisville is not going to be big enough, what that's going to facilitate is changing the lines, the division where the schools go, and I don't want to see that either. So I think at least just look at it and see if my numbers are right or if my numbers are wrong.
And also, when you have new developments, I want everyone to make sure you understand that doesn't mean everybody's coming to the high school. Along with these new developments, your numbers are going to grow at the elementary level. A lot of times when I've seen it, coming out of Fort Mill, where I've been for 4 years, with the growth there, as the influx of students were elementary age children, because parents they'll move with elementaries, but when kids get to later middle school and high school, they don't want to move, and parents are influenced by that. So the growth, over time, will be more at the elementary level, not at the high school, because you think you have 4 grade levels, but the seniors leave and everybody moves up, so you're not going to get to where you have no room in the high school. And so that's something to keep in mind too, that it's not going to be a point where we just run out of space totally at the high school, because every year a grade moves on, graduates on, and you kind of move up. So you're not going to just run out totally. And again, keep in mind the homes that are coming, they're not going to all be high school students. The data's out there to show that it's more your elementary. They're going to be a lot of new parents, and some of these homes too, keep in mind, are going to be age restricted. You're going to have some senior homes, some of these developments are for seniors 55 plus, and I don't think they're still having babies, are they? I'm not sure, but they could be, right? But 55 plus, you're not going to get kids out of those neighborhoods, so keep that in mind too with the numbers, that not every home that's slated to come here is going to have children in them. So that's one of the things where
elementary school in Louisville is designed right now to put the 2 or 3 classrooms that they needed 4 years ago there for the 85 students. So when you build it, it's full again.
Well, actually, it's not. One thing when you look at school capacity, it takes into account every space you can place students. What we have to look at is the spaces that for classes. That take into account those common spaces like your cafeteria, media center, all those things included in that capacity. But we know we don't teach classes in the gym, well, we do PE, but you don't teach classes in your cafeteria or some other space in your building. So that's when you say the capacity is this, that doesn't mean the school is already at capacity. And Louisville Elementary is not. They have a couple of rooms there now that are used for, because you have to have rooms for your special needs class or resource or your computer, your technology, those things where you don't have 20 kids in them. You may have maybe 8 or 9. So the school has some rooms in it, but they're utilized for those smaller setting classes that you need them for. And so, yeah, if we were to try to put the 5th graders back in there now, we could, but we would disturb other settings, class settings that they need to have at the elementary level. So the school will still have space to grow even with the additions to it, because it's not maxed out fully right now. Yes, sir.
I appreciate everything you said. I trust you to be a man of your word.
Yes.
I'll ask you this question. You're not doing this 10-year plan. Are there any plans for any redistricting?
No, sir. And the board can back me up on that. That has not been anything we've discussed. It's been the opposite. When I came, like that was out there, I kept hearing consolidate, the C word. We're not consolidating any schools in Chester County. The goal is to maintain every school operating throughout this county.
No redistricting?
No. And it's going to be hard. You think of geographically how the schools are located, it would be hard to redistrict because of where they're located.
Okay.
Yeah.
Chester will put everything west of
No, sir. There's no plans for that. No. If anything, long term, we would look at an elementary school in the Richburg or Edgemore or some other area. Long term, we would look for that to do that. Yeah. All right.
In that 10-year plan, is there anything said that these schools that any of them in that 10-year plan?
No, sir.
And the board members test that as well?
Well, they could say, like I'm saying, but in 10 years, I may not be standing here, all the board members, so I'm doing what we've discussed. We haven't discussed that.
them, you
Yes.
have to test it, we all test that money.
I only got 2 more months.
Yeah. Mr. Fuller said the next 10 months, no, that has not been discussed or anything. I think another thing to consider, if we're going to put this kind of money into these schools, we're not going to turn around and just close them. And I would think even 10 years out, different superintendents here, which I hope to still be here as long as the board at that time still keeps me on, unless the community wants me gone, but I still plan to be here as long as I can. But there'll be new board members, of course, over the next 10 years. And that wouldn't make any sense to close facilities when we're going to do this kind of upgrades and renovations to them. That doesn't make sense at all to do that. And so we would just have to hope, and you all are the voters, you will be the ones voting in these board members to ensure that these facilities stay open 10 years from now. All right, well, I think we're beyond our hour. What time is it, Dr. Pickens? 7:44. All right, let's pass my bet. Oh, okay. One more question, I'm going to sleep. That's especially, yes, ma'am. Yeah. Some of those things, you want restrooms in Great Falls, like other things that aren't listed for this referendum, how are we addressing those? Those will be maintained, we have a maintenance plan where those kinds of things will be addressed. So keep in mind, even the bond passes, those major things will be done, but there's still other things inside, like restrooms, those kind of things that will still be addressed through our maintenance plan. That's one of the things now with the staff we have, we're implementing. That's one of the things that's I'm big on is having those plans, because that's what's happened in the past is a lot of the maintenance things were deferred over the years. That's why our schools are in the shape they're in right now. So the goal is to have those plans in place, which they've developed, to maintain these facilities. So we won't be here again in, well, I can't say 50, well, I hope to still be in 50, doing this again, or sitting in the stands and having a new superintendent saying it. So the goal is to maintain what we have moving forward. But we've got to get to a baseline with these facilities that we have proposed, then we can maintain it from there and not to come back with this large amount ever again. All right, well, thank you all for your time. And again, we'll hang around some. If you have any questions individually, and again, if you want to try to meet with me one individually or some of my team, please call the district office or reach out to Mr. Chris Kristoff, and we can get something scheduled to go into more in-depth questions, things that you have. I'll leave you with this before you go. And again, this is just something to keep in mind. We know it doesn't apply to everybody, but think about it. For a can of soda a day, we can have those projects done. That's something to keep in perspective. A can of soda. We can get these schools and get our schools back up to par where they need to be. Baseline is what I call it. Thank you all and have a great night.